takes. Everyone's got them, so I took to the YouTube community tab to ask you what's your best gaming hot take, and we're gonna get into the tomfoolery and debate it all. But before we do me a favor, comment below your best gaming hot take, and you could appear in a future episode. Now, without further ado, let's see some of y'all best gaming hot takes. And our first gaming hot take comes from Rinjutsu26, who got 55 thumbs up, so a lot of y'all agree with this. And he goes on to say, if your game has a microphone option, it should be rated M. And right below it, BotDiv says, I agree. And to that I say, I half agree. I understand where you were going with this, and he's basically saying that people are so goddamn toxic in multiplayer games. So if there is a mic option, it should automatically be rated M because you just never gonna know what you're gonna get in a multiplayer game. The reason I said that I only half agree is because I feel like this statement, it would hit more if it was 2010. Like if this was like 2010 Xbox 360 Call of Duty lobbies, that would make sense. Although Call of Duty was rated M, but you get the point. You get the point. Every multiplayer game. If this was 2010, 2008 Xbox 360, back when nobody was worried about being canceled, everybody was screaming racial slurs and just screaming all types of obscenities all over them, it would make more sense. I think today, not to say that people don't encounter things online, because they do, but I think it's a lot more tamed. It's not as bad, especially because nowadays you have social media. I've seen so many nobodies be clipped and then posted to Twitter, and then somebody will tag the social media page. Like let's say Valorant, right? Like somebody will run into a toxic Valorant player, they'll clip it because now everybody has shadow play, Elgato's, whatever AMD recorder, whatever recorder you're using, right? They'll post that clip to social media. They'll tag the official Valorant page and be like, look at this person. They called me X, Y, and Z. They need to be canceled. They need to be banned. Next thing you know, your account is nuked. So I kind of half agree. I don't think that applies to today because it's not as bad, but if it was like 2008, I'm not gonna lie, you might have had a point. I half agree with this one. I halfway agree with this one. If we scroll down a little bit further, our next hot take comes from Voil Ren, who had 29 thumbs up, and he goes on to say, Saints Row's dildo bat from Saints Row 3 was the most satisfying melee weapon ever crafted from digital Damascus Code steel. It wobbled, it flexed when hit, then it boinged and ragdolled enemies. And then if you scroll down, Mike goes on to say it's right up there with Thor's hammer as one of the most powerful melee weapons in media history. And then this dude says, wow, you really studied the physics of that weapon, bro. Most of us spend a lot of time admiring the look and feel and mechanics of that weapon. Like, what you like, no judgment here, though. Y'all are fucking stupid, bro. Like, y'all are fucking stupid. I feel like you're half being serious with this, and I'm not gonna say you're wrong. If you like the purple dildo from Saints Row 3, go for it. That was a big selling point for those who are young and watching this video. Back when Saints Row 3 came out, they did a whole media blitz basically promoting the big purple dildo in Saints Row 3. It was like the lightsaber of the Saints Row universe back when Saints Row was good before that shitty ass reboot. So I'm not gonna debate you on that. If you like it, cool. It didn't really do much for me. Now shut the fuck up, bro. Scroll down and JT on the Sticks goes on to say QTEs aren't that bad. I kind of agree with that. When used correctly, they're okay. I think my issue with QTEs is a lot of times they're lazily used. And what I mean is there's nothing worse than playing a game. You fight your heart out fighting this boss for the last 20, 30 minutes. Sometimes you might be stuck for like an hour or two. You think the fight is done because you got the health bar down. So you put the controller down. A cutscene plays for like a whole minute where nothing happens. And then boom, out of nowhere, there's a fucking QTE. Now, if the QTEs, that's annoying, by the way. If the QTEs are consistent, so you know to be engaged as a player, that's okay. It doesn't bother me too much. It's more so of like, I hate random QTEs because a lot of times I just want to put the fucking controller down. So I kind of sort of agree. Yeah, I guess you're right. They're not that bad when used correctly. And our next hot take comes from DB Gaming, who goes on to say, not every game needs to be open world. Ladies and gentlemen, that's not a hot take. We're now on episode 2, so I'm gonna remind you guys the purpose of these videos is to debate hot takes. I think most people would agree not every game needs to be an open world. Next topic. Our next hot take comes from Swerve19, who goes on to say, Wii Sports is the greatest sports game of all time. And to that I say, I disagree. The greatest sports game of all time is Madden 2004 with Mike Vick on the cover. Fuck out of here with this shit. That being said, I'm just fucking with you, Don. Please don't take it serious. Don't get mad. That being said, I'll say top 5. Top 5. Wii Sports is probably top 5, maybe top 3. But to me, when I think of like my favorite sports games off the top of my head, yeah, Madden 2004 with Mike Vick on the cover, FIFA 98. Y'all remember the menu music? Woohoo! doom, 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 doom. Woohoo! That shit was hard. I'm trying to think. NFL Blitz. Wii Sports is top 5. Wii Sports is top 5. I'll say I half agree with this. I half agree. It's up there. It's up there for me. And our next hot take comes from Illmatic97, who goes on to say Cyberpunk 2077 is basically Far Cry. And to that I say, what the hell are you talking about? What? Did you? First of all, there's like a bajillion Far Cries between the mainline entries and like the spin-off games like Blood Dragon. Which Far Cry? Because look, remember there's the Stone Age game, Far Cry Primal. So you're trying to tell me Cyberpunk 2077 is like Far Cry Primal? Which one are you talking about? 3, 4, 5? Blood Dragon? Also, Cyberpunk 2077 has a cohesive, really great story about a dystopian future. There's no Far Cry game about it. Which Far Cry is that, dude? And then you talking about like the mission structure, like the gameplay? There's no Far Cry, and this is coming from somebody that like, I'm not even the biggest fan of Cyberpunk, but there's no Far Cry game that can fuck with Night City from Cyberpunk. That city was much more alive than anything in Far Cry. Far Cry, if anything, I think a better take is Far Cry is first-person Assassin's Creed. You run around in an open world, you climb towers, you sneak into enemy bases, you take it out, and you get, it's like the same fucking formula. Well, that's pretty much every Ubisoft game. So this one, respectfully, I gotta disagree. I would have loved for you to go more in depth on why you think Cyberpunk 2077 is basically Far Cry, because I'm not gonna lie, I don't think you played Cyberpunk. Like, I don't think you, like, who in Far Cry is equivalent to Johnny Silverhand, which is like basically like a motherfucker in your head fucking with you the entire game. Like Far Cry, you were just doing drugs, stuck on an island. Like that was Far Cry 3. Which Far Cry are you talking about, dude? I don't agree with this one. I don't agree with this one. Hell nah. Next hot take comes from Dirty South 71, who goes on to say the 7th console generation was and forever will be the greatest generation of gaming of all time. For those of you unaware, the 7th console generation would include the PS3, the Xbox 360, and the Nintendo Wii. And my response to that is, ooh, that's a good one. That's a good hot take. I'm not gonna lie, like at the time of this recording, I am 33 years old. I've pretty much seen every console generation. So I've owned the NES, Super NES, PlayStation. I've seen every console generation besides, you know, the ColecoVision, Atari shit. Who cares about that? That's boomer shit. So like I have a very extensive, you know, background when it comes to gaming. And I'm not gonna lie, some of my fondest memories in gaming was the 7th generation. I was a heavy Xbox 360 dude, and there was just a lot more experimentation. Like one thing I miss about that generation and like the previous generation as a whole, there were a lot more like B tier games, like AA. Nowadays, there's either like just indie games or AAA games. Like I miss those AA games like Army of Two or Binary Domain, like stuff like that, where it wasn't quite AAA, but you could see where it was going and had like a nice little charm to it. I feel like games nowadays, it's lacking those more experimental games because everybody wants to be the next big live service game. But do I think the 7th is the best? That's tough, man. That's tough because this, you know what made the 7th great too? Not only were all 3 platforms great between the PS3, Xbox 360, and the Wii, and the games were great too, but I feel like that was the generation when online was just starting to become a thing. And I feel like people were more regular back then. This is before the era of content creation, so people just played games, really talked how they felt. Things just felt more organic versus nowadays. Like, you ever been in a game? Like, I can't tell you how many times I've been in a game of something like Apex and somebody gets on the mic and you could just tell they're a streamer. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it just was none of that back then. It was just pure. It was pure, but is it the best? I'm not gonna lie, a strong contender is the 6th generation, the PS2, Dreamcast, and the GameCube era, because that's got some of my favorite. And it's funny too, because like I clicked reply to see what this person said, and they said we need a battle between the 7th and the 6th. I'm gonna say respectfully, I don't disagree. Like, this is one of those ones, I'm just talking off the top of my head. I really haven't sat down. If I sat down and like thought about it, maybe I could put together like a video about that. But like, I would say it's probably between the 7th and the 6th generation, because that PS2 era had bangers that still exist till this day in terms of series. Some of my fondest memories was on that PS2. It was on that GameCube. Top 10 games of all time, in my opinion, is still, one of them is still Super Smash Bros. Melee. So I'm gonna say I don't disagree. I would have to sit on this one. This is a stalemate. I would say this is actually a good opinion. This is a good hot take. I fuck with it. I fuck with it. LPJMac88 goes on to say, having a crazy expansive customization is a complete waste of time if your game is in first person. An example being Cyberpunk 2077. And for this hot take, I say I completely agree. Like, it's fucking annoying. You'll spend like an hour or two creating your character and then you don't even get to see them. I think you could do that in Starfield too. And then it's to the point where like it's in first person, you'll forget what you even look like until you go into a bathroom and you look in the mirror and you're like, oh shit, I look cool as hell. Bruh, If you're gonna let us customize the character, let us see the character. Third person is the way to go. Or at least give us the option like Skyrim or Fallout where you can switch between first and third person. I'm not opposed to that. So at least if we want to look at our cool skins, we can look at them. So to this hot take, I completely agree. It's fucking annoying when you can't look at the cool character that you created. That would be cool. Uncle D716 goes on to say, gaming would be dry without annual release games. They may not be the best, but we don't need them. And ladies and gentlemen, we've spotted the 2K player, we've spotted the FIFA, the Madden, the Call of Duty guy, because I completely disagree with this. Every year there's great games, and most of y'all just don't buy them. That does not, and also like, so here's something that was a thing when I was a kid, right? Where did this idea come from where when you buy a game, you can't replay it? If a game is great, you're most likely gonna replay it if you have the time. Mass Effect, the original trilogy, is my favorite game series of all time. I've beaten Mass Effect 1 12 times, and each time I played that game, I found something new in it, and there's like 8 different classes in it, so it always played different. Like if you're playing an RPG, you can play it multiple times because there's so many different ways to play it. So I completely disagree with this idea that gaming would be dry without annual releases. If anything, annual releases are the problem. Games like FIFA, 2K, Madden, Call of Duty, you could throw Assassin's Creed in there, and I'm an Assassin's Creed fan. Those games stifle innovation because y'all keep buying them, saying that it would be dry. No, gaming is dry because a lot of y'all buy these annual releases, which stifles creativity because these suits they're predicated, they follow just the money. Oh, they see we're making money, so we're just gonna keep making this because this is what people like. I completely disagree with this. When people say stuff like this, I'm like, I don't think you play a lot of games. 2023 was one of the greatest years of gaming of all time. Also 2022, we got Elden Ring, which there are people still playing it to this day. I still hop on and play every once in a while, and I'm still having fun with it. So I completely disagree with this because by this logic, before FIFA, Madden, 2K, and Call of Duty went annual, gaming was nothing. That's basically what you're saying. Gaming was nothing before annual releases became a thing because this was not always a thing. To that I say, before there were annual releases, you had games like Def Jam Fight for New York, creative games, NBA Street Volume 2, creative games like Legend of Dragoon, creative games. I'd argue it's the opposite. I completely disagree with this. Like I said, I read this. We found the FIFA player. We found the Madden player. We found the 2K player. Next hot take comes from Pie Guy 300, who goes on to say, Kingdom Hearts is hard carried by its music and character designs. And to this, I say I actually agree with this hot take. The only people who super defend Kingdom Hearts are like diehard Kingdom Hearts fans. Kingdom Hearts 1 has one of the worst cameras I've ever seen in a fucking video game. And if I could throw in there, and it kind of plays into the character design. Not only is it carried by the music and the character design, specifically, I think Kingdom Hearts is carried by the allure of Disney. I don't think Kingdom Hearts is really that great of a franchise. I feel like half of the game is just people like, oh, you never know, we're gonna run into, oh, in this level we might see Simba, in this level we might see Buzz Lightyear. I'm just like, but then if you look at it, like some of the best boss fights in Kingdom Hearts is like Sephiroth. That's a fucking Final Fantasy VII character, bruh. So like, I'm not saying like Kingdom Hearts is the worst thing on earth, but I do think it's hard carried by the music and the character designs and the Disney, because you ask anybody outside of the hardcore Kingdom Hearts fan, and even some hardcore Kingdom Hearts fans, most of y'all don't even know what this game's about. Next hot take comes from Green Dust 93, who goes on to say, I don't mind motion blur. Matter of fact, I like it. And to you, I say, mods, ban this man. What the hell is wrong? You like motion blur? Anybody who comes through to my streams, you know that's the first thing I do is I go into the settings and I turn that shit off. It hurts my eyes. It adds nothing to the games. I would have loved for you to like, and maybe if you ever see this video, I would love for you to further elaborate in the comments. What specifically do you like about motion blur? Because this is such a simple statement. I do think it's funny in his replies, like Chris Louis says, oh, you done for. Oh, that might be GG's, but I think my issue is motion blur adds absolutely nothing to most games. The only game I can think of off the top of my head where motion blur added something, and it's actually a recent release, is Dragon's Dogma 2. That is a game where motion blur was used correctly. For some reason, Capcom couldn't figure out how to optimize the game. I don't know if the hardware isn't powerful enough or they were just too lazy to optimize it. So what they did was they put a bunch of motion blur in the game. So if you notice when you turn the camera, you can only see what's right in front of you. And what that does is it helps so that it doesn't have to process everything on the screen. So the game runs halfway decent, but as you can see, it still has some optimization issues. That's one way you can use motion blur to enhance gameplay. But like, man, when I think of motion blur, the first game I could think of is oh my god, what was that? Killzone on PS4. What was that game? It was a launch game. Killzone Shadowfall. When I think of motion blur, Killzone Shadowfall, that game damn near made me blind. I hated that game because you couldn't fucking see anything. I disagree. Tony Hacker 5980 goes on to say, Helldivers 2 is the game of the century and has better gunplay than any other shooter out there. Better than Halo even. I don't even know why you mentioned Halo. Nobody plays Halo Infinite. Like, Halo hasn't been good since like Halo 3. Actually, no, Halo Reach. That was the last good one. So I don't even know why you brought up Halo. That's not the standard anymore. But Helldivers 2 is the game of the century and has better gunplay than any other shooter out there. I'm not gonna lie, not only are you wrong, you're just like objectively wrong. Like, and Helldivers 2 is a cool game. I get it's like it's having its moment right now, but the best gunplay? I'm gonna chalk this up to you're pretty young and this is probably like your first third-person shooter, because like I can name a bunch of third-person shooters that have a better like Helldivers 2 is not better than the original Gears of War trilogy. Like, what are we talking about here? You think Helldivers 2 is better than like Uncharted multiplayer was great. Uncharted 4's multiplayer was great. Helldivers 2 is janky. Like the dodge roll and shit, like it's not even the best third-person shooter. You're saying it's the best gunplay in any shooter. It's not even the best third-person shooter. I can name a slew of third-person games. Y'all gotta keep in mind who y'all talking to. I played a lot of games. No, Helldivers is cool. Not saying it's a bad game, but better gunplay than any other shooter out there? And the fact you use Halo to compare it, I don't think you play a lot of games, my boy. And our next hot take comes from Joe6, who goes on to say, this generation has been trash. I'm not arguing. There's legitimately no opinion, no reason anymore to have only one console anymore. Multiple console owners are winning in the game of options, but not everyone is fortunate enough to have everything. And to that I say, I agree. I think this probably is one of the worst generations in gaming. We're like 3-4 years into the PS5, Xbox Series X era, and these games are not running at 60 FPS. That should be 1080p 60 FPS should be the standard. That's still not a thing. And then on top of that, new IPs. One of my favorite things about a new console generation is a new console generation meant there are new IPs coming. But since like the Xbox 360 era on, I feel like bro, we're on Forza over 9,000, bro. How many times there's only so many ways you can drive a fucking Ferrari, okay? Why do they keep making that fucking game? They keep making Halo, they keep making Gears of War, they keep making God of War was like I wasn't a big fan of Ragnarok, but 2018 was great. 2018 was, I'd actually say 2018 is a modern classic. Kratos was able to get away. But most of these franchises are just slogging along, and my favorite thing about a new generation is it meant that new IPs are coming. You would get a trilogy and then that studio would move on to the next game, but instead we get The Last of Us remastered, The Last of Us remastered again, The Last of Us remastered 2. They're probably gonna remaster The Last of Us 3 before we even get The Last of Us 3, and we'll probably get season 3 of the show before we even get the fucking game. So yeah, I just think that like, and I think what that has to do is the cost of game development has gone up. I think the solution to that is they need to make smaller games. Not everything needs to be a big AAA blockbuster. Bring back the AA game, experiment. Everything doesn't need to be a $500 million fucking game. That way we can get more experimentation, man. And then the rise of live service games too. What's the point of making new games when 60% of gamers don't play them? Only 40% are buying new games. 60% of people are buying games that are 6 years or older, or buying from, shall I say, because they're playing live service games like Apex, Fortnite, Roblox. Just get a new skin, guys. I don't know what that was. Next hot take comes from Pixel Creep, who goes on to say, fuck Breath of the Wild and fuck Tears of the Kingdom. and to that I say, I'm not gonna say fuck Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. I thought they were good games, but I'm not as big of a fan as those games. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like I feel like a lot of the open world of these new Zelda games, Breath of the Wild and Tears, a lot of the open world aspect, it's really empty. Doesn't really add much. And I feel like with any other open world game where it's empty, like an example being Rise of the Ronin, right? That game got panned for having an empty open world, right? But then you have a game like Zelda where people will love it. Like, I feel like there's double standards. They'll love it, which has a big empty open world. There's not much to do. There's like some enemy camps and a cave here and there, but you're not really running into that much of interesting things outside of like the main story. So I think there's a bit of a like Nintendo bias. Ocarina of Time is still my favorite. I really hope for the next Zelda they move away from the open world aspect. It's not fuck them, I think they're okay, but I hope they do move away from the open world aspect and we get back to just doing like regular dungeon shit. I want to see some creative dungeons with some creative puzzles, creative gear, a really rich storyline, and really work on the combat. Also, I stand on it. Tears of the 720p, man, that frame rate into I like Breath of the Wild more than Tears of the Kingdom. Tears of the Kingdom's frame rate was fucking ass, bro. If there's one thing fuck Tears of the Kingdom, that game ran at like 15 fucking frames and like people defended the hell out of that game. I didn't understand. The draw distance was disgusting in Tears of the Kingdom. You could barely like see anything. Where is the Switch 2? So I don't say, I wouldn't agree fuck both of these games, but I wasn't the biggest fan either. They were kind of just like, all right. And this is coming from somebody who loves Zelda. They were just kind of, all right. Next hot take comes from Ray Jordan, who says, ban PC and console crossplay. Let the PC weirdos sweat and hack each other. I play on PC. I mean, I'm not a fucking weirdo. Like, what the fuck, bro? Like, I get it. PC has hackers, but also, hold up, let's get something straight. Console has just as many hackers as PC. We're gonna act like the Chronos, the Zen isn't a thing in 2K and Warzone. Fucking Warzone is plagued by hackers, and it ain't just PC. I'd argue it's just as much as console. The Zen sales are up on Amazon, but all y'all do is download the script and plug it into your controller and you got aim hacks. Cut it the fuck out, man. I think crossplay is one of the best things to come out of the recent generation of games, and I think every game should have crossplay, and the reason being is it'll keep most games alive much longer. The problem is after like the first 3 to 6 months of a multiplayer game, the casuals will leave and it'll only leave a certain amount of players in the pool. But if there's crossplay, that pool will be much larger. It'll take a longer time to shrink that pool as people begin to dissipate out of the player pool. So I disagree. Crossplay keeps games alive much longer. So if there's a game out there that you love, it'll benefit from crossplay in the long run. What you really should be advocating for, instead of calling people PC weirdos and sweat, is you need to demand better anti-cheat inside of games. That's the real problem. And I'm looking at you. The Warzone community is the #1 offender. You motherfuckers hop on this game and play it day in and day out. I can't tell you how many times I've been on TikTok just scrolling on the For You page. You just see somebody openly using and selling wall hacks and aim hacks, and Activision does nothing about it. Y'all barely complain about it. Y'all just get on the game. There needs to be a better demand of anti-cheat, because there are games out there like Rainbow Six. I don't know what the current state of it is, but Rainbow Six Siege, when I did play it, that shit was fucking funny. They had a great anti-cheat in there at the time that I played. I played Rainbow Six Siege from like 2015 to like 2018 before I got burnt out. And anytime like a hacker got caught, it could be mid-game or they could be in a different game. They would be publicly shamed, like to the left of your screen. It'd say this username got banned for hacking. They had a great bro, we need to improve anti-cheat, but crossplay allows it. Crossplay will help ease the console war. Part of the reason some of y'all are in the console war is because you just can't afford all the consoles. And I'm not saying that to shame everybody, but like, I feel like it'd be a lot less likely to happen if everybody could just play with one another. Discord's being implemented into every platform. Cut it out, bro. Let everybody play with everybody. I think it's fun when I can run a game like X Defiant and hop in Discord, and some people are on PlayStation, some are on Xbox, and some are on PC, and we can all play together as a community and we're having fun. It sounds like you got beat by a hacker and you just assume they were PC and your butt hurt about the shit, but cut it out, because console has plenty of fucking hackers. Look up what a Zen, a Chronos is. The Warzone community is plagued with that shit. 2K too. Auto Greens, yeah, look up a Zen, my boy. Next hot take comes from Soto, who goes on to say, From Software games do not make you a real gamer, just something some people tell themselves to justify getting killed by bosses for hours. Those unaware, From Software makes Dark Souls, Elden Rings, all the Souls games. I'm gonna be honest, I disagree with this take, not because it makes you less of a gamer if you don't play From Software games. More so, I disagree because I've never heard this before. Like, I don't know, maybe because I'm not part of that side of the internet. Has anybody heard that before? You're not a real gamer if you don't play Elden Ring and Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice. I've never heard, I could be ignorant. I've never heard that take before. I feel like maybe you heard that from 1 or 2 people and you kind of ran from it. If anything, the From Software community is annoying because they try to, at least when I stream it, they try to tell you how you're supposed to properly play the game. It was especially annoying during Elden Ring because there's no right way to play it. There's so many cool different builds. You'll hear a lot of that, like backseating on how to properly play a From Software game. But I've never heard anyone refer to anyone as not a real gamer because you don't play Elden Ring. I haven't heard that one, so I got to disagree with that. And that's all I got for you today. If you want to appear in a future episode of Hot Takes, make sure to comment below your best gaming hot take and you might appear in a future episode. In between time, since you made it to the end of the video, you clearly enjoy the content and you might have missed my previous episode of Hot Take. Just click the card right here and get to hearing more of that bullshit coming out of y'all mouth.